All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome back. We're about to kick off our last session of today's 2023 Trans Youth Forum. Let's get this party started.
Thank you all for joining us. It's been an exciting, informative day so far. Who's been with us the whole time? Chat with us in emoji. Big shout out to all of you.
And remember that you can use the chat function to ask questions. The HiTOPS staff is moderating and will pass these questions on to us. So let's get started. As introductions, hello everyone, my name is Landon. I use he, him pronouns. I am 22 years old, and this is my first year on the HiTOPS Trans Youth Advisory Board.
Hi, I'm Cass. My pronouns are he, they. I'm 14 years old, and this is my second year on the Youth Advisory Board.
Today, we have the honor of introducing a state championship winning track athlete who has faced discrimination on the track, but continues to love running despite adversity. She's used her platform to be a trans rights activist and a motivational speaker.
She appeared in Running While Black, a 3-part series in partnership with Adidas, which you just saw, and in the Hulu documentary, Changing the Game.
She also won state titles for the 100-meter dash and the 200-meter dash. Our chats are blowing up with excitement. Guys, gals, and non-binary pals, please welcome the amazing Andraya Yearwood.
Andrea, thank you so much for joining us today. Something fun that we like to do at HiTOPS is to always start with an icebreaker question.
Today, our icebreaker question is, what is your go-to karaoke anthem? Honestly, mine is Selena Gomez.
I think mine would be Fergalicious.
I think mine would probably be, I like Brent Fires a lot, so I know a lot of his songs pretty well. So I think I do well with him.
Too cool.
We have so many questions for you. We first wanted to ask about your background in track. What inspired you to start running track? How old were you?
Yeah. So I first started running track in middle school, around 7th grade. What inspired me was my family has always been a pretty athletic family. I remember I played sports since I was like a toddler. I've done gymnastics, acrobatics, dance, soccer. So track was just kind of like something new, something that I'd never really like dabbled in before. So I was kind of like, okay, like, why not go for it? But in middle school, I ran track on the boys team, and then high school, so I started running track on the girls team.
When did you realize that you were really, really good at it?
I think probably, I think in high school, but I think that was attributed to how I felt on the team. Because I know that in middle school, running on the boys team, I didn't really feel that connected to the sport. I was just kind of doing it just to do it. But I could tell that I wasn't always all that happy to be there, or either to be at practice or at the track meets. There were times where I just didn't, like, I just wanted to go home, like I just didn't want to be there. But in high school, I was able to run on the girls' team. There was a very visible shift in my relationship with track. And because I was able to connect with the sport more, and because I was able to just have more fun with it, I was able to branch out in the sport, try like jumping, or even hurdles I did at one point, even javelin I tried out, because I just loved it more. I wanted to do those things because I knew that I belonged, or I knew that I was able to play on the team that I belonged.
Yeah, really, what does it mean to you to have trans and POC representation in athletics, especially track, as you mentioned, you had that more when you transitioned from middle school to high school?
Yeah, I think having that representation allowed me to continue with the sport, because I know that a lot of what I went through many times made me, like, not want to play track anymore. Just like maybe not want to participate in the sport any longer because I didn't want to have to deal with kind of like the bigots either within my state or online. But having that representation, especially having Terry along with me, like playing alongside me, it just, it made me want to continue to run track, because I knew that, like, I wasn't alone in my situation, and I knew that if I had an issue with something, or if I had a question about anything that I was going through, and that I knew Terry was going through as well, that I had her to talk to. And I had her to maybe like think through things, and just like confide in about things that I felt about my situation. And I think having her there really also allowed me to realize that like the situation I was in was a lot larger than myself, and it helped me to see like, okay, like me running track isn't just about me now. It's about an entire community of youth. I mean, whether they are youth or adults, an entire community of trans athletes in sport. And I think knowing that as well helped me to want to continue to play the sport.
Wow. When did you first meet Terry? You mentioned her and how important she was to you. What was it like to compete and train with her?
Yeah. So I met her my sophomore year of high school. She had reached out to me, pretty sure through like Snapchat or something, and was kind of like, "Hey Andrea, I heard about your story. I'm also a Black trans woman in Connecticut trying to play sport, trying to really run track. Kind of like, what was your journey? Um, and like, kind of, can you help me out with any of it?" And I think when I first got her message, I think I remember just being so excited, just to know that like, okay, there's someone else out there like me. There's someone else out there who is in my same state, who that I could potentially see at track meets, who just shares my same experience. And that, again, like up until that point, all of freshman year, there wasn't really anyone I could necessarily like talk to, or no one that I knew could relate to my situation. But now, since Terry having reached out to me, it's just I don't know. I just felt maybe more secure in the sport and more secure in my role within the track. And
Right.
so having her there, and I mean, it just made like track meets fun as well, right? Being able to go to a track meet and seeing Terry there, even though we were competitors, even though we ran for different schools. I don't know, it was just comforting having her, especially at like the big track meets, because that's normally where we met at like states or like regionals, championships. But just having her there was just an extra sense of community at at those track meets, like especially when like people were booing at us, would say stuff about us. And it's like the overall energy of the track sometimes wouldn't be the best. Having her there really made a difference, a positive one.
I'm so happy to hear it. I can't imagine even just, even outside of bigots, that's so unfortunate. I'm really happy you had her. And I mean, I imagine just like the nature of a state championship, that might be
Yeah.
nerve-wracking too. So I'm so happy to hear that you had someone and kind of like a dual representation, and you felt like honored to kind of connect with her like that. Yeah, so that's really amazing. Well, so we recognize that Connecticut schools like did allow trans athletes to compete on a team that matches their gender identity. Like, what impact did this have on you?
I think, I mean, a very positive impact, but I think also it made me realize how fortunate I was.
Hmm.
I think as well as like allowing me to again like be more expressive within the sport and just to want somebody just to perform better in the sport. Apart from that, it also made me realize like how fortunate my situation was. And yes, I did experience a lot of adversity, right? A lot of people saying things at meets and like petitions. But on the flip side, like a lot of trans kids wouldn't even think to be able to play on what they identify with, right? A lot of kids, either in like more southern states or conservative states, don't even have that option. So I think realizing that also again showed me how important it was for me to continue running track, for me to be that representation, not only for myself and like not only for the kids of Connecticut, but also for trans athletes. I mean, across the nation, who may be looking to my situation and being like oh, like I don't get to experience that, but at least Andrea can, right? Or maybe to be like, or maybe like even just like a beacon of hope or beacon of positivity for some trans kids who are in situations where they can't compete on the sport that they want to, or on the team that they want to.
Yeah. Did you feel a lot of pressure with that weight and you kind of representing, exactly, all trans athletes, or you really just kind of took it as a determination?
I would say both.
Mm.
Um, I think there were definitely times where I just wanted to like just run, or like I just run without all that, I guess, pressure, and like just like I can see some of my friends, and then like them just not having to worry about things like that, right? And then them being able to just compete in the sport for fun, and not saying that I wasn't able to as well, but I think it was different, I think, in my case, obviously. And something that I was just like my friends was like wish like dang, like I wish I could just like chill and like relax and just like come here with a sense of relaxation. And like sometimes I wouldn't be able to do that because like at some meetings there would be like security guards around us or like the petitions or just like people saying like all those things. I would have some of those things would make me feel pretty tense at meets. So yeah, I think sometimes I would wish like, oh, I wish I didn't have to worry about it. But I would say I guess I'm pretty grateful to again like be in the situation I am in and to have this platform to speak out about my experiences, to speak out against the justices that are happening to the community.
Yeah, thank you. And audience question, one of our viewers lives in Connecticut and they are wondering, how did growing up trans here affect you?
I think again, I would say I think like kind of like I said before, it did make me realize again how privileged I was in my experience. Because again, like even in my school, like nothing ever really happened with me being trans. Like no one ever said anything to me. I was never bullied, never made fun of. Even my teachers, they all used the correct pronouns. All 4 years. They even addressed me by my chosen name Andraya. Like there was really no issues. And even my freshman year, even before my freshman year had started over the summer, I had a meeting with like a few administration at my school, um, really just to talk about how I wanted to be perceived at Cromwell and in high school. And again, in that whole meeting was just very about me and like what I needed to be successful in that school environment. And I think having that meeting, having such a support system within the school, even in like my town of Cromwell, nothing again, like just nothing really happened. Everybody was pretty supportive. And I think when I take my experience and then compare it to maybe like some experiences outside of the state or outside of my town, it makes you realize just how rare that experience can be for some trans youth.
Yeah.
And again, it just made me realize how much more I need to do to speak out about the rights that trans individuals don't have because I had such a privileged experience, if that makes sense.
Thank you.
What would you say to anyone who argues that trans people should give up their sports if they want to transition?
Well, I think I would just counter like why so I think first of all, I think when people make or I think ask that question, I feel like a lot of times well, one they kind of focus on the biology and the unfairness of trans athletes competing in sport, which I think shouldn't be the topic or I think that shouldn't be the point of trans athletes in sport. I think the point of trans athletes participating in sport is, I mean, playing with their friend, or I mean, at the most fundamental, I guess, point or the most fundamental part is them being able to just play sports with any other, like just like any other peers, just like anybody else around them, and them not having that opportunity or having that right taken away from them just because they are trans. So I think the question, I guess, to combat that would be like, why would trans give up their sport? Like just because they may identify differently than another kid on their team. Like trans kids shouldn't have to choose between their gender identification and a sport that they want to play. They should be able to participate in both without having to pick one or the other.
Yeah.
And people, I think, especially cisgender people who don't have to go through what trans people go through, shouldn't be the ones to pose that question at them.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you guys shouldn't be asking trans kids to choose their identity or their sport. And that shouldn't, like, it shouldn't really even be a topic of discussion to begin with.
Yeah. No, I agree. I mean, I think the flaw of the biology logic, it really is a flaw and doesn't make any sense because, there's variation in everyone's height and weight and muscle. And like cisgender, transgender, intersex, it really does not matter. And there's just so much variation. And especially at, the non-elite level, I think like you mentioned before, sports is just, for fun, for bonding, it's part of our experience just to, connect with people and be determined and grow leadership. So I also, yeah, I disagree with the whole that argument, and I agree that, people making those decisions, should not be cisgender people who have no idea, about the trans experience and just what sport means, to us in general. And then even on the most athletic level, again, there's still so much variation, or, national levels, like there's still so much variation, and it's such a flaw to think that and not invite trans people into the room to be inclusive about our athletics. So I agree there. Um, Another question we had, and you mentioned this a little bit earlier, but can you tell us a little bit more about the other sports you were involved in, and then kind of how that developed you as an athlete you became?
Okay, yeah. So I did soccer when I was younger. A lot of these sports I played on like the boys teams before I transitioned. When I was younger, I did soccer. I think imagine like what kind of got me into running was I really enjoyed like I don't know why like the running part of soccer. Like I didn't really care too much about like getting the ball or anything. I just like running.
Could not do soccer.
So I think that's what got me into track maybe a little bit. But then even I remember in 8th grade I did football at one point. Um, which never saw myself playing like ever.
Flag or
But
tackle?
sorry,
Flag or tackle?
tackle like actual like.
Wow.
My brothers had played it, on I was the only one who didn't. And I was kind of like, why not? Like I feel like I did soccer, gymnastics, acrobatics. I danced, even ballet. I swam even at one point. I just feel like kind of like I did everything like that I kind of really wanted to. So like, why not do football? Um, didn't really like it honestly, but I think me having tried out football allowed me to be more apt to try out other things, right? Like I think me being open to trying football made me open to want to try track, right? And even I did cheerleading when I was younger, maybe like intermediate, maybe like 3rd, 4th grade, and then kind of stopped. And then I did it my freshman year, first semester of high school. I did cheerleading, and um, again, I think me trying football also allowed me to want to try cheerleading again because like okay, like I'm gonna try something different, or not necessarily different, but I want to get back into cheerleading. Why not try it out? But I think the sports I did in my youth just allowed me, I think, to be diverse in the sports that I chose to do, and then I think that allowed me to be diverse in what I do, like after college or like in my future endeavors. I think it's allowed me to like have an open mind about what I do in my life.
Wow. The theme for our forum is "We will not be erased." How do you think you apply that every time you go to a practice or a meet, or even in your advocacy work?
Oh, I'm sorry. What was the beginning part of the question?
The theme for our forum is "We will not be erased."
Okay.
How do you think you apply that every time you go to a practice, or even in your advocacy work?
Well, I think one, just by showing up. So I guess a story that could go along with this question was one time, I think my junior year, I had like seriously contemplated not running track anymore. Like even like went to my coaches and even like talked to them about quitting and like not doing it and really just focus on working for the rest of high school. And they had come back to me and been like you're not quitting. Like anyway, like you're not quitting. So I think like just even the reaction of just being like you're not quitting, like you're not gonna let these people take you out of track is kind of, I guess, a perfect embodiment of not being erased, right? Of people wanting to erase you from the sport. Me almost, doing what they wanted me to do was to leave the sport. But then choosing to, you know what, no, I'm gonna stay, I'm gonna continue to fight. Like regardless if y'all want me here or not, like I'm not going anywhere, essentially. And I feel I know it's hard, but I would hope, or I would say I would hope that like a lot of trans youth, I guess, would have the same mentality around like being in sport. But I understand that not that the reason why I was able to think this way was because of my support system and was because of people that I had backing me. And I know a lot of trans youth don't have that, so I know I would definitely always everybody thought this way, but like it's not that easy to say that. Like a lot of kids may not have the resources to. So I think again, like that also just emphasizes the situation I was in and the privilege that I did have. But I think again, just by showing up, coming to every track meet, um, going to like every race that I was in, not being like, oh, I don't want to run the 400 because of so and so said I'm gonna automatically win. You know, like even like participating in this sport, participating on a specific race, like regardless of what other people said, I think is a perfect example of like still showing up and not allowing other people to erase you from, I guess, whatever situation or in whatever scenario.
Yeah. And would you say this would apply to how you maybe want to set an example for younger trans fans, maybe in athletics or even just broadly? Like how would you want to set an example for them?
Definitely. I think, well, I would hope that other trans youth seeing me, not giving up in track, and it's like in high school, just sticking with it. I would hope that other trans youth can apply that to their lives and being like, oh, well, if Andrea was able to stick with track while going through what she went through, then I can too, right? Or I would hope that other trans youth can see them doing what I did, regardless of kind of the situation that they were put in or the resources that they have and may not have. Because I don't want trans youth to be like, oh, well, Andrea has such a great support system. That's why she was able to stay in track. But it's like, no, like I would want trans kids to keep fighting for their right in sport. And I wouldn't want them to give up or be like, oh, I don't have these resources, so I'm just gonna like not run track anymore. Like, no, you should still fight to participate in sport that you want to play in, and you should still fight for your spot in that sport, regardless of kind of like the obstacles that are in your path or that may not be in your path.
Right.
I understand that adults would yell transphobic things during track meets. How did you best block out the rude comments during your races to stay focused? And did it ever make you? Well, I mean, I guess you did already answer. If it ever made you want to quit.
Um, yes, but I guess there were some meets where I was better at blocking out what people would say than others. Like I remember it was I'm not sure which year I was, maybe my sophomore year of high school. It was during outdoor track and I think it was like a state track meet or state track championship. And these two women had said something to me, like they were talking like directly, like we were like saying like right next to each other. Like we were like they were saying it right to my face. I remember I hadn't said anything in the moment. I just kind of like they had said it. I heard them say it. Like we were looking at each other, and I turned around and kept walking. And in that instance, I think I don't know. It might have just been easier to just focus on my race. I don't know. I'm not too sure why it was easier in that meet to focus on my race. But maybe I don't know. Maybe I'm not really sure. Maybe I mean it could have been my support system that I had at that meet. Maybe I just felt more confident in myself at that track meet. But on the other hand, I think my junior year at an indoor track meet, it was the day after the lawsuit had come out.
Mm.
That they were filing one. And at the track meet after that had come out, I false started. And I think due to um I think the negativity like getting to my head and me maybe just not being like in the right headspace. But again, like I couldn't really tell you why I false started at that meet and why I did well on the other meet. I don't know, maybe just two different like situations, two different contexts. But I will say that for the most part, I did like block it out. And I didn't let it affect me too much. And I think again, a lot of that was attributed to my support system and the people I had around me. Just because they were able to put a smile on my face all the time, we were able to just laugh and just not talk about the negativity as much and just have fun with the sport. And me being able to have fun with the sport allowed me to realize that like, the negativity wasn't that big of a deal. Like, and also that, and as well as like the negativity never really did anything, if that makes sense. Like it didn't, like at the end of the day, I still competed as a trans girl on the track team. All 3 years of high school, excuse me, I was never once denied running. Like at the end of the day, I still ran. No one ever took that away from me. So I think me knowing that and being like, okay, these lawsuits can happen, like these petitions can circle, people can say whatever they want, but at the end of the day, I'm still gonna go to practice on the girls' team, right? At the end of the day, I'm still gonna the next track meet I'm gonna run in the girls 100-meter dash, right? So it's like y'all can say what y'all want, but at the end of the day, like I'm still doing what I want. So I think me knowing that also helped me to to stay in the sport because I knew that what the negative like all that negativity wasn't like didn't really have any like I don't know immediate impact if that makes sense.
Yeah. And I think that's a perfect example of why, supporting trans athletes and having legislation and policies that, uplift them too is so important because it was right, it was the foundation to like, keep your strength. And I also want to say your examples of, sometimes you felt shaky or times that could block it out just serves as a great example that like, it's okay to not be, 100% always like so focused, like like things can hurt and that's okay, but at the end of the day I think like having that support system around us and to find that and offering it to other folks is really important. So I'm really happy you had that, and I'm really glad to hear your experiences with it. I think we all very value like hearing your story.
Absolutely.
And given that the Olympics has left policies regarding trans participation up to individual sport committees, like in your opinion, what is the best way a sport league can opt for inclusion while dismantling, the various arguments that oppose transgender people to be competing at this elite level?
I think by first having your stances clear and direct for whether it be the trans public or raise the public in general, like having your stances clear on like trans inclusion in sport, and then obviously those stances be for trans inclusion in sport. But I feel that like I think the main reason why maybe the World Athletics Community had kind of pushed the rules to be towards like certain sports or have sports decide the rules for themselves, maybe due to I think maybe lack of education. Also, like maybe some people just don't know about trans athletes as much. Maybe the information that's being put into those specific rooms is information that isn't beneficial to the trans community or isn't promoting like trans inclusion in sport. So maybe just making sure the information is accurate, and then also making sure that like trans voices are in the room when those laws and rules are being made, so that those so that I mean, well, basically, how are you going to make rules about trans athletes when we aren't the ones there to help make those rules? Like, this doesn't make sense. But then also, like, why wouldn't you want a trans perspective on rules for and about trans people? Like, I don't know, it's just I think it's common sense, but maybe not to everybody. But also, I think I just don't think they should have put the rule, or at least have the rules decided by each individual sport. I feel like they should have made um kind of like in a national rule or rule that covered maybe all sports along all bases, so that it just wouldn't be up to each individual. Because now you have sports saying, "Oh, we will allow trans athletes," and some saying we won't, and it's like it's just not fair to trans athletes or the trans community in general for them to be again like just for them to not have the experience, the athletic experience, just because of how we identify. So I feel like it would be more beneficial to the trans community if there had been maybe a more overarching rule or legislation put in place that govern like all sports
Yeah.
instead of just individually.
It doesn't make sense to me is that, of course, all of these claims are just supposed to be supporting, girls, of course,
Mhm.
cisgender girls. But,
Yeah.
or so if they really cared about gender equality, like then they would see with inaccurate, like sport policies, or necessarily not like, just ill sports policies that, trans men may be benefiting or not benefiting, but like trans women are really, struggling more with the policies than trans
Mhm.
men. And then at that case, of course, that's gender inequality right there. So I
Mhm.
definitely see the, mismatch and like hypocrisy kind of in that. And I really agree that there really needs to be more people at the table for these conversations and to kind of connect it more greatly into like a pinpoint larger response, because you're right, there's too much like circulation going around, and I can't imagine, nationwide, like, how that affects really everyone truly.
Exactly. Oh, I was gonna say, um, and kind of to go along with the hypocrisy statement that like a lot of these organizations, and like sports governing bodies say that they are in support of women and girls, right? But then again, like very clearly either exclude trans women and girls out of that conversation, or it's kind of like if you were really in support of women and girls, right, you would support like women's equal pay in sport, right? Or like even sexual assault allegations that countless women make in athletics, but they're often put under the rug. Like there would be more support around those issues as well, if people were really focused on the inclusion or like the how would I put this? Or I guess like the betterment of women and girls in athletics. But I think it very blatantly shows that they are only there to target trans bodies, right? They're only there to target specifically trans women, but trans bodies as a whole, and like not really there to support like women and girls as a whole, if that makes sense.
I wholeheartedly agree.
Mhm.
For those in the audience who don't already know, in 2021, the Biden administration withdrew former Attorney General William Barr's support of the exclusion of trans athletes competing in women's sports.
So with that, how did having that support from government officials affirm that you belong, in women's sports?
Um, I think I think again, kind of same thing as like what my state legislation kind of did for me in assuring me that I belonged in not only like in the sport but on the team or on the team that I was on, and it just affirmed like my role in that space. And it was kind of like okay, like yeah, all the naysayers can say what they want, but if if state legislation kind of supports me being on the team, that's kind of like what everyone has to say doesn't really matter, right? Because at the end of the day, it's what the state legislation says, and if it allows me to play on, if it allows me to play on the girls' team, then yeah, like what everybody else has to say doesn't matter. And I think that's kind of what either state legislation or federal legislation does, or even like having government support. I think that's what it does for trans athletes. It affirms, I guess, like yeah, our spot on the sport, and I think that just for like builds more confidence within us and then within our community, and then that can either help us to fight back even stronger. Like what it did for me, it helped me to stay in the sport and not leave track. It can allow other trans people to come to the sport, kind of maybe like what it did for Terry. How if Terry knew that she had like government support, that'll be like okay, like then that'll make her more apt to go into the sport and play sport, especially if she again even saw me in it too. It's gonna make other trans kids want to play sport, and I think it'll just create a better. Hopefully it'll create a more accepting space for trans athletes within the sport, having that government support.
Yeah. And I think this is a perfect time to remind everyone that, just supporting inclusion and, even showing up to your local elections and, all the ground small work can really influence, the larger policies that are in place, that, determine trans athlete participation. But like, sometimes I feel like it can, at least to me, feel a little discouraging when it's like up to the hands of our leaders. But, at the end of the day, I remind myself that like, all the work we do here, all the people we're reaching today, even like it's a step, and it's a step obviously in the right direction. And I think we do all have an impact or responsibility to care about that. So I think we can be really hopeful about where it's going. And Yeah, so thank you so much for sharing about your passion and role and representation as a trans athlete. But we wanted to continue a little bit more with questions about what you're up to today. So, are you still running in college?
No, I'm not. I don't run anymore. Not, well, at least not competitively. I don't. Sometimes I'll go on runs like around campus if I feel like it. Or even we have a gym on campus. Like I'll work out there sometimes with friends, but I don't run competitively. No, no, no.
Um, what are you majoring? What are you majoring in?
My major is Spanish, and then I study. Well, I have a double minor in political science and women's and gender studies.
Oh, and can you share with everyone your year and what college you attend?
Yeah. So I'm a junior right now, and then I go to North Carolina Central University.
Awesome. We'd heard though that you'd study abroad last year too. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah. So, well, because I'm a Spanish major, I just I know I wanted to go abroad, maybe like freshman year, but like wasn't really sure all like too much how to go about it. But then last semester I studied abroad at NYU in Buenos Aires in Argentina, and that was I mean, it was a really great experience just to be like a whole new culture, a whole new language, just really everything was new, a new school, new like even like peers I went to school with. Like everything was so new. Like even all my classes were in Spanish. Like it was a really great experience. But then also I would say it was a little nerve wracking and like being a trans, especially being a black trans woman, studying abroad, going to a whole different country. I remember I remember like trying to talk to or trying to like get to or like meet as many trans people who had studied abroad as well that I could just like talk about their experience and like just to see um just like how like what it would be like. And then I remember I even had a conversation with the director of NYU Buenos Aires about like what resources were there for trans people in Argentina or at NYU
Awesome.
Buenos Aires, right? Because I knew I didn't want to go there like without anything, or I didn't want to go there kind of like without any kind of support in that country. So I wanted to make sure that if I was going to go there, I knew where to look. And I think NYUBA was really great in providing that support. And I think just Argentina in general, or I should say like Buenos Aires, which is more where I stayed in the city, was really good. I think at least in my experience, I felt pretty welcome as a black trans woman um, studying abroad.
That's important. I'm happy for you. And Danila has to tell you, Vamos Argentina.
Yeah.
Um, so I'm sure a lot of folks watching today would love to know about your coming out story. If you feel comfortable sharing, how old were you when you first came out, and how long did you or did it take to come like out more publicly completely?
Uh, so in around sixth grade, that's like what are you in sixth grade? Like 11? I don't know. I think right, like 11, around there in sixth
11,
grade.
12.
Yeah, okay. I came out as gay first to like my parents, I mean basically everyone. Like I would also, I think it's important to note that from like elementary school up until high school, because our town is so small and because there's only like one school, like one middle school, one high school, you go to school like the same kids, like your whole school, like throughout all schools, you're with the same kids.
Yeah.
So like I wasn't really worried about like really coming out to anybody. Like it wasn't really to me. It wasn't that much of a nerve wracking experience because I'd known these kids since like first grade. You know what I mean? Like I knew them, they knew me, and honestly, at that point, like when I came out, like it wasn't even like a surprise to anybody because we'd all known each other, right? So everybody was like, okay, yeah, like anyway, like whatever, like we all know, right? So, and then that was honestly the same thing when I came out as trans. I came out as gay, sixth grade, and then I was like, that doesn't feel right. I think like there's something else. So then I went to therapy. I learned more about like the LGBTQ community and what it all entailed. And so when I found out when I learned about being trans, I was like, oh, okay, like that. That's what I resonate with the most. So then I came out as trans, and it's like the same thing. Everybody was like, oh, everybody was happy for me, obviously, but like everybody, it wasn't a surprise to anybody, which again, I'm grateful, very grateful for. And then I guess I came out. I guess public. I feel like I was always kind of public with it. Like I just never felt a need to necessarily like a need to really like hide it, especially within my community because everybody was pretty supportive. I was very fortunate to just kind of like express myself how I wanted to when I wanted to. So again, very appreciative of being in that space. Um, but then in middle school, maybe like seventh and eighth grade, I didn't officially come out as trans. I cross dressed, but still went by he and him pronouns, and I hadn't changed my name yet. But I would still like dress femininely. And then in and then for, and then going into high school, into ninth grade, when I had that meeting with like administration at my high school, that's when we were kind of like, okay, Andrea, like how do you want to be perceived? Do you want to like, go by female pronouns? And I decided that I wanted to. So in that meeting, I decided I was trans, so I like used the females bathroom, females locker room. Everything I did was as like was like on the females team, like if that makes sense, like females bathroom, restroom, everything like that. And yeah, I guess it's been like that way ever since.
No, thank you
It's
for
been
sharing.
it's been amazing to hear about your coming out, education, and athletic story. Now, we would love to know how you came to be in the documentary Changing the Game.
So I think my mom and I first were reached out to by the director, Michael Barnett. He had reached out to us and like kind of like pitched it to us, saw what we thought, asked if we wanted to be in it. And we were kind of skeptical at first because we had never been in a documentary before. And we just didn't know anything about it, honestly. But I think he had actually come down or come over to Connecticut to like come see us in person and just like talk to us about it face to face. And I think him doing that, like the whole team coming down to see us, like just even have that preliminary conversation, I think really made a big difference as well. Because like anybody could have just done that over Zoom, right? But for you to like come down, take your time to come see us in person, have a conversation, I think really solidified. I think one maybe the need for this documentary, but also like why they were doing it. And I think it really showed us that okay, that they really want to showcase trans experiences into the trans story from a trans perspective. And I think us seeing that and then us obviously like having more conversations with the whole team about it made us feel like okay, like we can trust them, like we feel safe in doing this. So then that's how we kind of continue to do it. And then after the documentary, and then we kind of like I knew that Mac and Sarah were in it, but like I hadn't met any of them yet since we kind of filmed all our segments like individually. And then we all three of us first met each other, I think at Tribeca Film Festival, right? Yeah, at Tribeca in New York. We all met each other. And that's like when it was a really dope moment. It's like because we all heard about each other, right? We heard about each other throughout the whole making of the documentary.
Yeah.
And like we've been seeing each other and stuff, like just finally be able to get to meet each other in person, like that was a really dope experience. But
Especially
yeah,
schools to Rebecca.
yeah, exactly. No, it was really really cool. But yeah, that was like the initial part of it.
And what was it like, or like what did it mean to you that they wanted like you to like be featured,
Mm. First, kind of surreal. I'm not gonna lie, like me, like what? Even especially like Carmel, Connecticut, like people don't even know where that is. So it was kind of shocking. So
Yeah, one
like,
of our audience members does.
true. But it was just I don't know, just I guess shocking at first to be like, wow, they really want me. But then after a while, it did. I think kind of going along with me it solidifying that this is more than just me, right? Like, yes, I'm very appreciative that they did choose me to represent, or like they did choose me to share my story. But I also knew that okay, this is might launch you into like a larger platform. More people might be seeing this, like this, like who knows where this could, I guess, take you, or like traject your experience and your story. So I think that just made me realize just how like important it was to do this documentary. And that's also why I was like, okay, like that's also why I agreed to it because I knew how serious it was and how serious the conversation was and how much more representation was needed in the conversation.
Mhm. Did you have these same feelings when you were featured in Running While Black, like the Adidas campaign, or maybe like you can talk a little bit more, because especially there being more intersectional, including your racial identity with, you know, our trans identity.
Very true. Yes, I definitely agree that I did have the same sentiments as I did with both documentaries. That kind of like even though yes, representation, even from changing the game to Running Wild Black, there has been a lot more representation of transgender athletes within the athletic world and the community, and just more conversation around the issue in general. But you're right, with Running Wild Black, I did feel like there was more intersectionality around me being black and being trans. And I think there was some touch on it in changing the game, but again, not to the extent as Running Wild Black. So that's why I chose to do Running Wild Black too, was because like I think I just thought it was beneficial and it was needed, necessary, I should say, to highlight my blackness and my transness, especially because I know how much it would have helped me to have had that representation like my freshman year of high school, to have been able to see a black trans woman or even a black trans like high school student in my going through what I went through and how much that would have meant for me. So that's why I continue to do it with When You're Black, because I knew how much that could mean for other trans youth who may be in my same situation.
Kudos Adidas. That's a big name too.
Yeah.
What other opportunities have opened up from the campaign?
I think a lot of them have just been a lot of like speaking engagements. So I mean, whether it be this panel or this forum with HiTOPS, I was asked to speak at another engagement with this organization called Diversity Abroad, which they help to kind of like make studying abroad more accessible to like LGBTQ individuals or like maybe more underrepresented individuals. So I'm able to like bring my intersectionality, being black and trans, and talk to them about how that, I guess like how my lived experience has been throughout my life. I was able to speak on that. I guess just more things, maybe like more like the back around, like also next week engagement, hopefully next month in Denver with the Human Rights Campaign. Get about
Wow.
my experience, things like that, and like other
That's
some
cool.
life with the Human Rights Campaign and other things. So yeah, pretty dope things. Yeah.
Yeah, that's so cool, especially human rights campaign. Wow. And the broad inclusion. Are you considering like any other acting or like film appearances?
um, Not really. I would say though that I guess when the documentaries do happen, it's more of I don't know, maybe like more by chance, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
Which I guess I do appreciate, but I don't know. I've never really been one to like act. So I would have it's cool to do. It is really dope to do documentaries, but I also do like really appreciate like panel discussions and like talks and like that, being able to like be surrounded around by um like more like trans people, like I guess like this panel right now, like be surrounded by trans people and non-binary people and having conversations with them. I do enjoy those maybe a little more. So hopefully I might see more like panel discussion conversations come out of documentaries.
Well, we're honored to have you today.
Thank you. Thank you. And I'm honored to
um,
be here as well. Thank you.
um, we are almost running out of time, so we'd like to ask just a few remaining questions, including what has been the most meaningful experience that you've had just out of your overall trans visibility?
I think the most meaningful I guess I really appreciate it when people will DM me, either being like I think it's so cool when people say like they'll learn about me in their classes
Oh, wow.
or like even in like college courses, like people will like DM me like, oh, like we just learned about you in our college course on like law or like in sports. And I'm like, to me, like that is so dope that like one, my story is getting out there, like more people are learning about the experiences of trans athletes, even if it like is maybe just through my story, but at least the conversation is reaching more people in more rooms, especially in like universities, especially like youth and like college students. I think that is really dope. No, I just think it's so cool. People like just reach out to me like, oh, like I saw your documentary, or oh, I just watched it, or like even like Andre reached out to inspiration. Like I just like interacting with people who like come up to me and like say things. I just think because I think that is a very tangible way to see your impact. Like for people to be able to reach out to you and tell you how they've impacted you, I think it's so dope to like see what I've been doing and like my story help people. And then when those people reach out to me, that only makes me want to fight harder, right? That only makes me want to continue to speak out and continue to share my story because now I've seen what it has done for others. So now I want to continue that and continue to make sure that it helps other trans individuals. So I think when people reach out to me and like I guess like feel that they're able to resonate with my story, I think is one of the most like affirming experiences in my visibility.
I can definitely guarantee that people are still writing about you and learning about you. I did write an essay about you for phys ed, and it was really cool to learn more about you, like on school databases, and anything I could find, just even in less than an hour, just how much I could find about you and how empowering you are.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
If you could give one piece of advice to your younger self and to younger trans athletes right now, what would you say?
I would say one, just remember that, or I would say if you can, like try to find community where you are. I know like being trans, it can get isolating at some points. And I know like because I know that some people are prone to kind of like intruding within themselves and kind of say to themselves when going through tough times. But I think it is really important to find that community because I know how much my community helped me in my transition and in finding myself. So I would say, if possible, try to find community where you like in your environment and in your surroundings. But I know that I know that I come from a place of privilege to be able to say that, and I know that a lot of trans kids don't have that community. And they may not have as supportive of a supportive of a system as other trans kids have. So I think if not, to just like remember that there is always community, whether like whether it is like through the internet or even if they aren't like immediately in your state or in your town, that you still do have a whole community of trans activists, of trans advocates who are there fighting for your right to exist, whether it be in sport, in corporate, in education, in university, like wherever you exist, that there are trans activists and trans advocates there fighting for your right to exist in those spaces. And again, if you aren't able to find that community like in your media environment, that like there's PFLAG and GLAD and GLIS and like other organizations that you can reach out to and that have resources. And I think it is really important to utilize them as much as possible and to utilize like the people that maybe come with them or utilize the people that are also in the same spaces.
I think it's a good time to remind our audience that you can also reach out to HiTOPS and
Yes.
even just talk about like maybe what you need, or if you just want to talk to another trans person, we're always here to help.
Yeah.
Yes, Cass is absolutely right. So this is about all the time we have for questions today. Andrea, we want to thank you so much for joining us. You're truly, really empowering, and we really appreciate your time today. We really do, all of us here and all of us at the audience.
Of course. Thank you. No, I really appreciate you guys having me. This was a great conversation. I really enjoyed speaking with you guys.
This was amazing. Andrea, thank you so much for being here with us today. It was truly an honor. We appreciate your time and being so open and honest with us.
Of course.
Thank you everyone at home for watching today. We thank you all, and thank you to our amazing sponsors and to our Spotlight video speakers.
Huge shout out to the entire Trans Youth Advisory Board. You are all amazing. Y'all have been such a great audience today. Spaces like this give us somewhere to go to connect and make our voices heard, especially during emotionally challenging times. So thank you for helping us make this happen.
And we appreciate having the opportunity to connect with such a strong and supportive community. With that being said, please stick around because we're holding our raffle right now with some of our favorite HiTOPS staff that have helped make today happen. We'd also like to welcome back any of the fellow Trans Youth Advisory Board members who'd like to join us on screen for our final celebration. Great, and that is all.
That is all.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.